Hello, good evening. I'm Oral Gibbes and welcome to Oral Gibbes Live. My guest this evening is none other than MP Wescot-Williams, President of Parliament. How are you doing? Good.
Good evening. I'm doing very well, Oral.
And thank you for accepting the invitation to be here. How are things going so far?
A new year, and I look forward to the year like I usually do at the beginning of a year, of a new year, with hope, with anticipation, with passion to get things done. So I am one of those persons who look at the glass as half full rather than half empty, see a new year as the opportunity to do things. And we're still in that time of the year, just started, still in the month of January. And of course, last year was a politically very, very active year. And so I hope this year we could see some things happen for St. Martin, but with election in the next coming about 9 months, I don't know. I don't know how far we're going to get.
But do you realistically think that your parliament can accomplish that? And because right now, when you look at it, it will need to be, any changes will need to be approved by parliament, right?
Most changes, and we are talking now electoral reform before the elections of September, and most changes would require a change to one or more ordinances, and that would have to go through Parliament to become effective, to be passed. So I really hope, and I stated this before, that first of all, I think that we are racing against time as far as electoral reform is concerned. That's one thing. But I do believe that if we are able to focus on one or two changes, because there are different things that you can do in terms of electoral reform. I mean, you can take it from one extreme to the other. Looking at the Constitution, because a lot of the discussion surrounding electoral reform has to do with what individual members of Parliament can do once they are elected to Parliament. That's the main discussion. And what we have seen, we call it ship jumping, meaning members of Parliament decide they no longer are with the party on whose strength they were elected to Parliament. So that's the issue when we talk about dealing with electoral reform. What do you change to limit that? What do you change to make it more difficult? Because I don't think the issue is here so much that a person would leave his or her political party. The issue is that in St. Martin, that nearly always automatically means that you have a change in government. And we have seen where the instability that creates, I mean, it is detrimental to St. Martin. The premise for a government, the premise for elections is for people to elect their representatives, 15 representatives. Those representatives will support a government of their choice. So you have 8 or more members of Parliament. Together they decide, well, we're going to work together, whether it's 1 party, 2 parties, 3 parties. We're going to work together. We're going to appoint, because actually your government is appointed. We're going to appoint a government that will then have to carry out a certain program. There have been some changes in the way we do politics since we have become country in 2010. One of the major changes in terms of elections, etc., is an ordinance that was passed on the registration and finances of political parties. That ordinance establishes certain requirements for political parties in terms of you just can't, like we could have before 10-10-10, you could get up and say, I, Oral Gibbes, I want to run a slate. I want to run a list. You didn't have to be a registered political party. Today that is different.
But why? Why was that changed? Because I think that was best of both worlds.
But You know, I think it was good for its time. However, clearly we needed to regulate ourselves. You know, we needed to formalize certain things. Whether the ordinance on registration and finances of political parties, whether that hasn't gone a little too far before we had an opportunity to kind of grow into a more formal structure for politics and for political parties, that is a question.
But what I see here is that what has happened is that the process has shut out the average citizen from being a part of the political process and place it in the hands of just a few established political parties and wealthy people. I don't think that was the intention.
You know what happened, Oral, and this, in my opinion, is not sufficiently understood, because it's the concept, it's the concept. And again, I want to repeat, I don't know if we have grown, if we have evolved, if we have matured, that some of the laws that we put in place that we can now comply with, live up to, and execute. Okay, I have my doubts because I have been in the process. I have seen the changes, and as you indicated earlier, it might look nice on paper, it might sound nice, but are we as St. Martin there yet in some of the cases of our new laws as country St. Martin? So the point that you raised in terms of involvement, actually the argument behind the registration and finances law on political parties is that once you form, because now to register a political party, you need to be an association. You need to be a formal association. In an association, the ones with the most clout are actually the members of the association. But that hasn't, in my opinion, grown sufficiently. So indeed, you need a membership, so you need a group of people to decide, well, yes, we want to be in an association, and we are going to submit a list of candidates. But that trickled down to the membership of the party, because people say they are members of party but not officially registered as a so-called card-bearing member of the party. All of this has changed. So actually, the thinking behind that particular law is to make it more democratic, because now you got an association. Oral and Sarah are going to sit down and say, you know something, we think we should form a political party. In order for us to do that, you have to go and form an association. You have to go and create members. You have to have membership, a registration of members, etc. So that's really the thinking behind it, but that's not the way it operates currently. And maybe it's something that we will grow into, but there are many laws on papers that now, in executing them, I believe that if you look at it, you would say, you know, well, maybe we hang this basket a little too high for our reach right now, because we haven't grown to that level, we haven't grown to that extent.
So, because right now it is, you know, it's become very expensive to get involved, to start a political party based on the new rules.
Well, you know, there are two things to that. I agree that if you look at what is required of you, so first of all, so you need to have money, because first of all, you need to go and you need to create an association. You need to register it. You need to notarize it. Okay, that requires some money. When it comes now to filing, you got to make your yearly report, you got to turn in your yearly report, you got to make your financial report, you got to turn those in. And where the issue of money comes in, and I think it was MP Franz Richardson some weeks ago, he made mention of the fact that it is expensive. Why is it expensive? Because you need to have your accounts checked and verified by a registered accountant. That costs money as well. and you need to do this accounting every year, whether it's an election year or not. You need to give in. You need to file. You need to report. You know. So yes, it does call for financing, and if you look at the way that politics has been conducted on St. Martin until now, if you want to keep up with some of the bigger parties in terms of their campaign, that too then put a big burden on on participating in politics.
You know, you're leader of the Democratic Party, the oldest political party in this island. Is what, 62 years now?
Created in 1954.
Yeah. It was such a simple time, and we've made it so complex, and now we're trying to solve another problem in terms of ship jumping and trying to stop changes in government. I've said it before, ship jumping is good, it's healthy, it cleans, it's a cleanser. Because I give an example. Let me go back a little bit. Just about an hour ago, I completed an interview with your colleague, MP Sylvia Matza.
Okay.
It's going to be aired on Sunday coming. And, you know, MP Matza said he was in a political party that he was not aware of what was going on. His own party was checkmating them. In other words, they were adding more and more people to the party, and then the leader said, look, I have 10 people now, I can do what I want. And they checkmate that leader. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? That's politics.
Yeah, no, but you see, I look at it differently. Oral, and you see, there must be room for disagreement. But should that be to the detriment of the stability of government? Right now, Oral, we have a situation that no government has had the time to come out with a program and say to the people, this is what we are going to work on for you. Let then, at the end of 4 years, that is the legal term for a parliament to sit and to have a government there. But right now, what you see is a lack of accountability to the people, back to the people, to give the people an opportunity after a 4-year term, except in the case of really exceptional issues that you don't have a full term, but for the people to be able to understand from the government, this is what we will set out to do, and then judge them on having fulfilled that, yes or no. But this kind of compromising and the lack of clarity, I look back at the years since Country St. Martin. I look back at how, because you have ministerial responsibility, how ministers in the past have felt that they can do things without the government itself as a totality also being in agreement. You know, so the system, Oral, and I have been there, I have sat through different councils of ministers, different personalities, and it is not easy. And I believe it is because of the lack of a common vision, of a plan to say to the people, well, this is where we're going.
You know, MP Matza also said in the program, now they're meeting, the coalition partners meet at least twice a week. They discuss everything with members of parliament and the ministers. I was happy to hear that, because that's the way it's supposed to be. Not where you have a political party that is in government for 8-9 months. The people are not aware of what's going on. The members of that party who are in parliament, who ask the people to vote for them, are not aware of what's going on. The leader's naming who he wants in key positions without the consent of the party. You can't have a system like that.
Already, you know, I sat back, I sit back, I look at these developments, I look at what we're talking the United People's Party. I look at what they went out and promised the people of St. Martin. I look at how they deceived the people of St. Martin. And you know, the people's memory is short overall because, you know, I don't know. And again, yeah, you can try with communication, you know, to at least keep a collective vision in terms of where we're going. But I think overall politics is we're gonna have to, and I want to use a word that MP Maurice Lake likes to use, but we're gonna have to raise the bar in politics. And you know, and I give everybody due consideration. I believe most of the people, when they say they want to do good for the people of St. Martin, they really mean it. But believe you me, Oral, getting in there and dealing with the reality of St. Martin, the reality of government. I mean, don't go out there and tell the people of St. Martin that you now have all of the answers. You're going to change this thing. You're going to make it work. It doesn't work like that. But you're going to get a lot of people falling for that.
But the thing is, no, we're ready, and then the people are waiting, and they're not ready. And now there's another government in, and this government didn't take months to fill all the ministries. And in less than 3 weeks, the previous group that was ready and wasn't ready for almost a year is criticizing this government. It's kind of strange how the politics are in this honor right now.
It is. That is precisely my point. And it is regretful because what happened, Oral, this whole fiasco with dissolving of parliament and calling of elections. I mean, I have stated on every possible occasion that I have, how I felt about that, the way it came about. At the end of the day, elections are scheduled for September this year, God's willing. What can be realistically done in that period of time? What can not only don't talk only about electoral reform, but generally. And the problem is that everything is going to be politicized. Everything that government is seeking to do, it's going to be politicized. So I don't know how much we are going to be able to accomplish for the people of St. Martin in this period of time. You're going to get then the same story again. A lot of promises are going to be made during election, and we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And let's see if the people of St. Martin are really going to take the time, sit back, and judge people on their work, judge people on what they're doing, how they are approaching their position that they hold now, or a position that they would like to hold. You know, so I as I said at the beginning of the program, Oral, I am usually a positive person. I believe that together we need to talk about the future of this country, where we want to go, how we want to do it. We're going to have disagreements, but politics need to go to another level, Oral. It needs to.
The thing is that is there a deadline now on this committee that was formed to work on the electoral reform, because they're going to have to take it to Parliament, right?
Well, you know, and again, I want to separate a couple of things. The matter of independent members of Parliament operating according to their own judgment and conscience, as it is sometimes referred to, that is a matter of the Constitution. Okay, so that's where that comes from. We could look at changing that. That would mean you have to get constitutional reform. You'll have to go through changing the Constitution. You need 2/3 majority, et cetera, for that. So that's one thing, constitutional reform, changing our Constitution. You could also look at our electoral system and electoral laws. So if we go to change our electoral ordinance, you have to go through the process of changing an ordinance in Parliament, all of the necessary requirements, going to the Council of Advice, et cetera.
That take years.
Depending on the change, it does not have to take too long. And everybody put their shoulders under it. The government, the councils, the parliament, then maybe overall, we can get something changed for before the election.
You know, I'm not a gambling man, but I'm a realistic person, and I see how government operate, and I don't see it happening.
I share your concern. I am in a position, I wouldn't say to make it happen, but to help make it happen. I am going to give it everything that I have because I believe it is necessary. And I know you have some others who will as well. But realize that the election scheduled for the 26th of September, some things have to happen before that. So even if you were to get changes done to the law, or laws even, if it's more than one law, the question would be whether that would be applicable to an election, because you can't have a change that happens the week before election and say, well, this applies for the election of 2016.
See, this is what I'm getting at here, because I feel that the people of St. Martin, and I don't like to use this word, but they're being lied to, because I don't see it happening in time for September 26th. And I don't know why most of the politicians are trying to pretend that it's going to happen, because everyone knows the process takes time. How come this very delicate and complicated one is going to be so shortly taken care of?
Yeah.
It's just not possible.
Yeah. I am, and again, I haven't seen but I'm sure they have it. The like a schedule for the committee whereby every part of the process is given a realistic but short period of time, you know. So, I mean, you can't say that you're going to get an answer from the Council of Advice in a day, but you could, with an understanding, get it as quick as possible. And again, it depends on the changes. It depends on the nature of the changes.
Let's be realistic here, because they've been working on the short-term contract for how long now? Many years.
Yeah.
The short-term contract.
But Oral, you got to ask yourself, what and where is the political will? That's what you have to ask yourself. What and where is the political will to get certain things done? You see what I'm saying? That's a question too. That's a question too. What and where is is there political will to get certain things done? And who is behind it or who is against it? You know, all of these things play a role.
Well, I think if I had to gamble on this one, I'll win the lottery, because I don't see it happening.
Well, I hope you're wrong, for the simple reason, Oral, that I think we need to change some things. I think we need to change some things in our system, and I hope that we can get it done. Otherwise, Oral, we're going to have elections on the 26th of September, and you're going to have a government change in October 2016, and then maybe with a government who decide, but you know, let's try that stunt of 2015. Let's go dissolve Parliament again, and elections in December 2016, because that's possible.
Well, that will happen.
You understand what I'm saying, Oral? That's possible. We could have elections in September 2016. You get a situation where you have a disagreement between Parliament and the government, and then the government run and say, well, okay, you know, we're gonna invoke Article 59 and dissolve Parliament, because there's no understanding, there's no rationale like we have seen it in 2015.
No. I have to come back to this one. I laugh because former Prime Minister Marcel Gibbes said in this program that you outfoxed them by, when you were Prime Minister, by not getting in place the Electoral Council. And that's the reason why in 2012, when they had that problem, they could not call for new elections like they did in 2015.
How he means the Electoral Council wasn't there?
Because no Electoral Council, according to him, was in place. They could not organize an election at a time.
But if an election had to be called, because the law for the Electoral Council has been there.
Prime Minister Gibbes said on this program that at the time when he was Prime Minister,
I outfoxed them.
that it was not at the time. It took I think, 3 years before the Electoral Council really came into place. But that's what he said.
Yeah, of course.
So
And since it was there, he then decided they ain't gonna outfox him. He's going to dissolve Parliament.
So it worked. It worked in his favor, and at the time, when you was there, it worked in your favor because you were not forced to invoke that article for elections at the time.
But you don't. But so the government sits there, and anytime there's a problem with the government should be able to invoke Article 59. That's the way we're going to.
See, that's why I'm coming. That's the reason why I said earlier that looking at the process of, we're going to stop the ship jumpers, cut their legs off, give the power to the political parties, we still have to deal with the Constitution and interpretation of the Constitution. And when you have prime ministers there or government who feel they can manipulate the process, will still use it. So where are we going? And this is the point I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, you're right. It ties into it as well. But when you have that because of a change by even one member with his or her political party, you could get a change in government, or the government saying, we are going to dissolve Parliament. I mean, we're just going to continue with this for years to come. And I stated it before, and I want to repeat it, Oral. What we are seeing with the use of what we have seen, not what we are seeing, what we have seen with the use of Article 59 is putting the cart in front of the horse. You can't have a government at its whims deciding to dissolve Parliament. That's not what the article was put there for. Because realize then the Parliament, the people elected by the people of St. Martin, so the 15 members of Parliament, basically then they can't tell the appointed government anything. Because the minute they say that and they say, well, you know, you're not doing your job well, you're not informing Parliament, and then they're going to go back to the government bill and say, well, we don't like how the members of Parliament spoke to us or spoke about us, so we're going to dissolve them. That could never be the premise of a parliamentary democracy.
And that's the reason why I see problems not just with Parliament and ship jumpers, but I see problems too with the government and prime ministers. Because everyone can violate or say, abuse or use the process in their favor when they see fit. And electoral reform towards members of Parliament should also be electoral reform towards members of the Council of Ministers.
But you see,
it sounds strange what I'm saying here.
But overall, the ministers exist on the graces of Parliament.
Right.
That's the way it is.
But it didn't look like that a few months ago. A few months ago, it looks like the ministers could do and say what they wanted, and Parliament just had to shut up and go along, or as we saw what the Prime Minister did.
Because at some point in time, Oral, it became a game. It became a game. And members and factions in Parliament supported what the government was doing, not realizing that tomorrow or the day thereafter, the roles might be turned around, and they will then be faced with a rogue government.
Okay. Another thing I want to ask you is, today in Parliament, I didn't see it because I saw the first part, there was the quorum, and I didn't realize there was another meeting after that. I understand that the meeting to approve the deputy Greffier for Parliament?
Yes, the deputy Greffier, the deputy Secretary General, yes.
That meeting went not as expected because some members of Parliament questioned the person nominated. Now, you know, what I'm seeing here, and not just I, many people, it appears that the government of St. Martin and Parliament has always said that they're not government because they're Parliament, but still it make up. I'm using the word generally now.
Right, yeah.
The government of St. Martin seems to always have a problem with St. Martin people when it comes to employing them. Everyone else can get carte blanche, but when it's one of our own people, then we run them through the mill.
Oral, I said it today in a meeting, and I want to repeat it. I regret very much the way that meeting went, a meeting of the Central Committee of Parliament. There is a Secretariat of Parliament under the responsibility of the Secretary General, the griffier, as we call, in our case, it's a her, under the responsibility of the Secretary General. The position of first acting, because actually we have a Secretary General, first acting, and a second acting Secretary General. The position of the first acting Secretary General became available. A process was followed in order to come with a proposal to appoint someone to that position. People applied, so the process was open, mind you. Persons apply, they were looked at. There is a group in Parliament, an entity, a little group, that consists of the President of Parliament, currently myself, the first Vice President, and the second Vice President of Parliament. Those three persons together are called the Presidium. They deal with matters like personnel. The Secretary General is responsible for the Secretariat of Parliament, and proposals will come to this Presidium. So the matter of filling that position came to the Presidium. The recommendations were made, and then it went to a meeting in which all faction leaders participate. That's where this matter went. It was discussed because the proposal coming from the Presidium was to appoint, and while I hate to do this, her name was public all over the airwaves this morning during the meeting, so I will now call her name, Mrs. Anne Groen-Gums. It was proposed, who currently fills the position of second acting Secretary General. And the proposal of the Presidium was to appoint her in that position. I mean, she is there, she is second acting. Why not give her the opportunity to move up a notch? So the proposal was for her. Any discussion like we saw in the meeting of the Central Committee this morning, why didn't that take place behind closed doors in a faction leaders meeting? Why didn't faction leaders who seemingly had an issue, why wasn't it broached there? So what happens now? So this morning, this meeting, as Central Committee meetings are, was a public meeting, an open meeting rather. And then you get members starting off by saying, yeah, we regret very much that this is not a closed door meeting, because we would have liked to say what we want to say behind closed doors. Why did those members who made that comment at that time, which they could have done, just ask kindly for the meeting to be behind closed doors? So if they did not want that information or their position or their statements to be public, then all they had to ask was for the meeting to be closed. But that was not the intention. They wanted to say the things that they said, and they wanted to say it to the general public. And again, it's regretful because you don't want to have that kind of a discussion. It should not be a secret who was proposed, for sure not. But to go in, and then you hear all kind of things, and this one did this for political reasons, and I ain't here, and then somebody else get up and say, but our faction is absolutely for the appointment of Mrs. Groen-Gums. And I sat and I looked at it transpiring in amazement.
You see, that's the reason why, you was Prime Minister for 4 years, and you held that position with such grace, and when I look at Parliament, I am so oftentimes disappointed because it's like a comic show, and it's now over 5 years, and we still in this comic show. It seems like when some members of parliament see a camera, they go crazy, and I hope that we will mature, and many of them will take the example of what you've done as prime ministers for 4 years, that we will see the same thing in parliament now that you're president of parliament. But we all know they're all individuals and have their own mind and will to do things. But I think the public is sick and tired of the way parliament and parliamentarians behave in parliament now.
You know, and we had 2 meetings today, oral, 2 meetings. One was a committee meeting. All committee meetings of parliament are also public meetings. We had, in the morning, we had a meeting of the Kingdom Relations Committee of Parliament to look at several proposals for kingdom law, etc. All faction leaders are member of that committee, of the Committee on Kingdom Relations. So that would mean that for you to get that meeting going, a meeting scheduled and called, had no political issues. It wasn't a meeting that a particular faction wanted to have. And what do you see? At least 3 factions are there in the hall, behind their desks, and refuse to sign in to give a majority of faction leaders for the meeting to take place. You know, and I've stated it in the past, but on thinking about it further, because I was like, ladies and gentlemen, this is not what you want to show the people of St. Martin. Why would you not sign in for a meeting? Who are you hurting? What to say? Well, the government supported members of parliament. They should make sure that they have a quorum. No, we each have an individual responsibility. And then you mock the system, so you sit there behind your desk and you don't sign in. What had to happen, oral? That meeting couldn't take place.
You've been around for a long time. You were also a commissioner of education at one time. I had the president of the Windward Islands Teachers Union here last night, and today a lot of people told me they were also shocked that government schools, all government primary schools, right, are now in English. Let me take some calls for them. I'm going to come back in that hour. Oral Gibbes live on call. Hello.
Hi, Oral. Good evening.
Good evening. How you doing?
Fine. You got my agenda with you today, man.
Yeah.
I'm happy to hear. I'm happy to see you.
How you
I wish
doing?
a bright and happy New Year.
Thank
and
you.
I want Shin's team to keep up the good work.
Thank
That's
you.
my girl. And with her, I'm so satisfied with her team. And I want God to continue to bless and to give us strength. Do your thing, do your work, and do you know what you're doing.
Thank you.
And I wish you a happy New Year from Rosa, Simpson, all your girls.
Thank you so
God
much.
bless you and God bless your family. You know I love you to death.
I know that. I know that.
Good night. Good
Thank
night to
you.
Cedric and Maisie Richardson too. And all you too. I love you too.
All right, thank you.
Good night.
I love you too.
Bye-bye.
Take care, bye.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, let me take another call here. Oral Gibbes. Yes, all right. So the thing is that I was asking about education. She said that the primary schools that are public are all in English, but the government doesn't have a secondary high school in English. And that came up because what I,
The business.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know what, I'm kind of surprised, and maybe you know more than I and others because you've been involved in the process for so long.
Yeah, you know, Aura, and in fact, this matter was a matter of discussion in the coalition, and indeed, the decision to basically have our elementary school system with the language of instruction being English, that would mean that eventually your high school system would have to be for the larger part in English as well. So what you're seeing, and I guess that is why the MPC went over. They haven't gone over into the English language, but they have created an English stream as well, because coming out of the elementary school, you got the majority, the large majority of children having done English elementary education. So it's nearly automatic that you are going to need sufficient schools and school systems to take care of those coming out of elementary education and where their language of instruction has been English. So, so what you're seeing happening is now we need a sufficient school system to take care of our students coming out of elementary school. But I need to say, Oral, that I am a proponent for our children getting the opportunity to be taught Dutch in such a way that they can continue studies if they would like to in the Dutch system. And that is a challenge. I know it's a challenge, but we cannot, within our system today, ignore Dutch as a language that our children should learn and be able to further their education in. It's important because we are still so much part of a Dutch system. And if we talk about getting our people in areas like in the justice, lawyers, judges, you name it, they're going to, for now, they're going to have the opportunity to be taught Dutch in such a way that they can then be taught in Dutch.
Okay. All right. Oral Gibbes Live and caller. Hello.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening. You're on air live.
Yes, in Parliament, they have a way, the parliamentarians, to ask questions to the ministers, and I have a problem with it that they have sent it back in writing. They will always, they will tell the Honorable Wescot-Williams, that is, she's the chairman of the council in the Parliament, that they could put it back in writing. What about we people? We don't know the answers is. So only parliamentarians getting the answers, and that is not fair to us. Because if a parliamentarian asks a question, we have all rights to know what's going on. And we don't get it because they don't publish it for us to know the question. The answers to the question the parliamentarian makes to the ministry. The ministry could always put it in writing, but to who? To the parliamentarians. But what about the public? Doesn't the public have a right to know? Since we are the one that put the parliamentarians there, to represent us, if they make a question, we have to get answers. Nobody publishing it. And I'm sure the chairman will understand what I'm saying. She knows speaking. And I know she knows what I'm talking about. That we have always to know what's going on in our country. Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you, ma'am.
And thank you, caller. And the caller has a point, and I think it's part of a larger problem. One, the Parliament and members of Parliament need to much more execute their function as a member of Parliament in an independent way, whether you support a coalition or not. I do not purport to be sitting on any minister's seat. And I don't like the idea because to me it distorts things for members of Parliament to feel that they are. We as members of Parliament, we have a huge responsibility. We have a lot of work to do. And so what the caller is saying, but if members of Parliament ask a question to the minister, and answers are given, and they're given in writing, how does the public know about these answers? How does the public know what the government answered? And I think there is a responsibility for the members of Parliament to communicate, even if they receive it in writing, communicate these things to the people, communicate these things to the public in general.
Right. Oral Gibbes Live on caller. Hello.
Yeah, all the time I thought it was on while I'm not.
Well, you're on now.
I wasted a lot of money there because I called. What I'm saying is, I admire the Minister of Parliament. She has been scuffled, battled, and she has nevertheless kept her flavor and principle. That's the point. She was never always right, and I'm saying it plain. And those are the very things, the very ingredients that have brought her to this magnificent stage of elevation. The next thing, the president, William Allen, is trying his best also. He's not Mr. Perfect, and he's not always right. If he thinks he's always right, he's making a mistake. For the people are the judges, but he is trying his best also. And Christopher Emmanuel, he is making a sort of a breakthrough. But he has to realize this. He's young on the battlefield, and he has to learn. And to learn means that he must listen carefully and not take excerpts from each and every source outside of the meeting as if it's building him up. It's not a builder. It's only breaking him down. If he is to exceed, he must look in things in that direction. What I'm saying at this point and time, for the sake of St. Martin, understand this. If you don't do your best, woe unto your children and grandchildren. So it's not only my children and grandchildren and other people's children and grandchildren who suffer as a result. Yours would suffer too. And I think you are more intelligent than to just blank out. And Oral Gibbes loved his daughter. And I agree with him for loving his daughter. The lawyer and the doctor, he brags of them. And why shouldn't he not brag? The man is right. He's making his input. Keep up the good work.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On live call, hello.
Yes, good night.
Good night.
I would like to go back to where you asked the President of Parliament some things pertaining to the thing with Marshall Gumbs and when he didn't want to leave, because when Crusoe governor said, once we have a majority, we don't have no need to form new elections. So what Crusoe governor said, stand up, put on his feet, and we're in St. Martin, our governor, he didn't want no enemies with no one, so he just went along and gave everybody up here some piece of the pie. But I think that was wrong. If our governor had stand up also and said, once there's a majority, they don't need no elections, then we wouldn't have had no elections at all. And I think the chair lady of Parliament is a brilliant mind, and the Prime Minister also is a brilliant mind, and I see things working good for St. Martin in this government. Good night to everyone. Bye-bye.
All right.
Thank you, caller. And just to react briefly, Oral, in fact, you would recall that a couple of days following the motion of non-confidence in the members of government at the time, so the motion of non-confidence of the 30th of September of 2015, the governor issued a letter. And to me, that was the correct premise for that situation. And the governor issued a letter to the government, to the Marshall Gumbs government, and he said a couple of things. He said, there is no reason why the new majority in Parliament cannot go ahead and form a government. he said to Marcel Gom's cabinet, he said, you have a motion of non-confidence, you have to tender your resignation. And thirdly, in this position, until your resignation or your dismissal is granted, you have to act as a caretaker government. So that letter went out, that formal letter went out from the governor to the Marcel Gom's cabinet. What happened is when the Prime Minister then, Marcel Gomes, decided he is not going to follow that directive of the governor, and then he put his heels in the sand, so to speak, and so the governor at some point found himself having let this matter linger on and eventually started to negotiate with Marcel, and that, in my opinion, was a wrong thing to do. That was a wrong thing to do, and we see what the outcome was. So it was and it went on, and it was no, I am not going to resign. You are first going to sign, or together, we're going to do it simultaneously. You're going to sign the decree for dissolution.
Okay. Oral Gibbes Live, you want to call hello?
Yes, good night, Oral.
Good night.
I'm here once again.
Yes. Go right ahead.
Yes, I want to make a point clear. What I didn't understand well is if you make all the primary schools language of instruction English, then automatically after a certain amount of years, the high school must also become English, which I am very concerned about. I'm very concerned that it's like they're out to destroy the future of these young children. I'm very concerned. They should have had Dutch at least as one of the primary subjects then, even if it's not a language of instruction, but it should take a prominent place in elementary school. I recall in my school days, even so, when I went to Holland, I still couldn't speak Dutch good. So if you don't get Dutch in elementary school, you will never be able to master the Dutch in no sense. So I'm very concerned about the future of these children having able to master the Dutch language at any time in their life. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, it's exactly the point that I raised earlier. The call is correct in stating that, yeah, with the majority, because we have Dutch elementary schools. One, Dutch is taught as a subject in the English schools. The question is, and we have not arrived at that level, is can we immerse our children in the Dutch language to such an extent that they will be able to make a choice to continue their studies in Dutch and be successful? But that requires more than just teaching Dutch as a subject. It requires more around it, and it requires more of us as a people, as a school system, in teaching Dutch if we want our students who desire to do so to excel in a Dutch system when they decide to study in a Dutch system later on beyond high school.
Well, we're just about out of time, so I have 45 seconds in closing.
Wow. Aurel, thank you again for the opportunity. I want to thank the callers who called in and expressed their opinion. I believe that as a community, we need to continue to talk about St. Martin, to look at your government, to look at your parliament. So again, as I always say, this program is a good resource in getting people to talk about the matters that matter to all of us.
Well, thank you for coming in. I wish you much success and all the best to you and your family for the year.
Thank you.
And I hope you all make it for September 26th, but I don't think it's going to happen.
I'll be back here.
All right, okay. Again, thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
And that's it for now. See you next time. Till then, good night. Take care. Bye.